Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm 27 years old. And this is the moment I stopped being the invisible person who made everyone else's life possible. My sister Michelle was always the golden child. Perfect grades, perfect job, perfect everything. She walked into rooms and people noticed her. When I walked in, people asked if I was lost. That's just how it was. That's how it always had been since we were kids. I learned early that being invisible meant being safe. Being visible meant being compared and losing. So I became very good at disappearing. What nobody realized was that I was disappearing into their lives. Every problem they had, I was there. Every crisis, every emergency, every impossible situation, I showed up with money I didn't have and solutions nobody asked for. Michelle got a job at a fancy marketing firm. Congratulations everywhere. But 3 months in, she called me crying. She'd made a huge mistake on a client account. The firm was going to fire her unless she paid back the damages, $30,000. I was working 2 jobs at the time. I was eating cereal for dinner. I was living in a place where the roof leaked when it rained. But I heard the desperation in my sister's voice and something in me just cracked. I didn't even hesitate. I went to a loan shark, literally a loan shark, and borrowed money at terrible interest rates. I paid back Michelle's firm. She kept her job. She kept her perfect image. And I started drowning in debt that wasn't even mine. But here's the thing about drowning. After a while, you stop fighting. You just accept it as your normal. Michelle bought a condo, a beautiful place downtown. She posted pictures constantly. "Living my best life," she'd caption everything. My parents would show me the photos and ask why I couldn't be more like her, why I couldn't get my life together the way she had. They didn't know I was paying for that life. Every mortgage payment came from my account. Every property tax bill, every condo fee, every upgrade she made. I was the one signing checks in the middle of the night when nobody was looking. I calculated it one day. Just sat down with a calculator and went through 4 years of bank statements. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type the numbers. $123,000. $123,000. That's how much I'd given away. That's how much of my life I'd literally transferred into my sister's bank account. And she thought I was lazy. She thought I was a failure. She laughed at my apartment while living in a place I was paying for, and not once did she ever say thank you. Not once did she acknowledge that while she was building this perfect life, I was dismantling my own. Something shifted in me that day. It wasn't anger at first. It was clarity. Like I'd been looking at my life through frosted glass and suddenly someone wiped it clean. I was going to make her see. I was going to make everyone see. And I was going to do it in a way she could never escape or explain away. Christmas morning, the whole family showed up at our parents' house. Michelle arrived in her Range Rover, a car I'd helped her finance, by the way, wearing designer everything, looking like she had just won the lottery. My parents hugged her first. They always did. We sat down for breakfast. Everyone was laughing. Everyone was happy. Michelle was telling everyone about her promotion. She'd gotten a raise. She was talking about buying a second property. The audacity was almost impressive. That's when I stood up. I didn't say anything dramatic. I just opened my laptop and sent a file to the TV screen. The room went quiet because they could all see it loading. Then the numbers appeared. Transaction after transaction, year after year. My name, her name, amounts that made my mom's hand fly to her mouth, mortgage payments, car payments, credit card bills, vacation costs, jewelry purchases, all of it. My dad's face went completely gray. Michelle's mouth opened and closed like a fish. She kept trying to speak, but nothing came out. The breakfast got cold. The toast got hard, and nobody could look away from that screen. "What is this?" my mom whispered. I answered her very calmly. "This is my life savings. This is 4 years of me working 2 jobs. This is me borrowing money at rates that destroyed my credit. This is me making myself invisible so my sister could be visible." Michelle finally found her voice. "You're lying. You're making this up. Why would you do this?" Because you asked, I said, and I was too weak to say no. But I wasn't done. I pulled out a folder. Inside were documents, investment papers, property deeds, loan agreements. Everything was there in black and white, and then I showed them the real revelation. The condo Michelle lived in, the one she bragged about every single day, the one she'd been planning to flip for profit, I owned it. Not as a gift, not as something she could take for granted. I owned it. My father stood up so fast his chair fell backward. You own the property. I bought it 2 years ago, I explained. When Michelle's credit score tanked so badly no bank would touch her, so I put my name on it. I've been renting it to her at a loss. She's been living for free while I've been paying property taxes. The silence in that room was so thick you could have cut it with a knife. Michelle started crying, real tears, not the fake kind she used to manipulate people, the kind that come from actually understanding what you've done. Sarah, please, she said. I can explain. I didn't know you were struggling, I thought. You thought I didn't matter, I finished. You thought my life was less important than yours. You thought you were just naturally more successful than me. She tried to reach for my hand. I pulled away. Here's what's going to happen, I said, and my voice was so steady it surprised even me. You're going to move out of that condo within 30 days. You're going to stop telling people that you built your life yourself. Because you didn't, you're going to start paying back every single dollar you owe me. And you're going to learn what it means to actually work for something instead of having your sister bleed herself dry for you. My mom was crying now. My dad was just staring at the documents like they were written in a language he didn't understand. Michelle looked at me with this expression of total shock. Like she'd finally realized that the person she'd been using wasn't made of infinite resources. I was finite. I was breakable. And I'd broken for her. What about the kids? She asked desperately. Where will we go? That's not my problem anymore, I said. For 4 years, MY problems weren't anyone's problem. Now we're equal. I walked outside and stood in the snow. My hands were shaking. My legs felt weak, but my mind felt clear for the first time in years. My brother came out about 20 minutes later. He didn't say much. He just stood next to me in the cold and said, I had no idea. I'm sorry I didn't pay attention. That meant something. Not everything, but something. My parents took longer to process. They called me that evening. My mom's voice sounded different, smaller, like she'd realized something terrible about herself. We failed you, she said. We celebrated Michelle's success without ever asking where it came from. We didn't see you. No, I agreed. You didn't. Can we fix it? My dad asked. I thought about that question for a long time. I don't know, I finally answered. But we can try. The difference is, this time I'm not going to make myself disappear to make that easier for you. Michelle moved out of the condo 3 weeks later. She went and stayed with a friend while she figured out her life. And something amazing happened when she actually had to figure out her own life. She became competent. Turns out when you're not living on someone else's money, you actually learn how to manage your own. When you're not getting bylaid out every time you fail, you actually learn how to succeed. She got a job, not the fancy one, but a real one where she actually worked. She rented an apartment she could afford. She started paying me back. And you know what? We actually became sisters. Real sisters. Not a dynamic where one person was bleeding and the other was taking the blood for granted. As for me, I sold the condo. I paid off my debt. I stopped working 2 jobs. I started a life instead of just surviving one. For the first time in 4 years, I went out with friends. I got my own apartment that I actually wanted to live in. I bought clothes just because I liked them, not because they were cheap. I started being visible in my own existence. The money I got back will never be enough to pay for what I lost. The years I spent invisible. The dreams I put on hold. The person I stopped being because I was too busy being what everyone else needed. But something changed that Christmas morning. Something fundamental shifted inside me. I learned that love isn't supposed to hurt. That family isn't supposed to take you for granted. That being kind doesn't mean being stupid. And I learned that the most powerful thing you can do is stop. Stop giving. Stop sacrificing. Stop making yourself small. Stop, and then watch what happens when people actually have to face the consequences of treating you like you don't matter. Michelle learned that lesson the hard way. And I learned that I deserve to be seen. If you've ever been Sarah, if you've ever been the person paying bills that weren't yours, carrying weight that wasn't yours, being invisible while someone else got all the light, then you know this feeling. That moment when you finally refuse. Thank you for watching Revenge Voice. Please like this video if this story hit you in the gut the way it should. Subscribe because we have more stories coming. More stories of people who stopped being convenient and started being real. Remember this, the world doesn't respect people who give everything. The world respects people who know their worth. Sarah finally knew her worth. And once you know yours, you can never go back to giving it away.